G'day everyone, Greg here from Fish Plate Films and iPhone special today, start of it anyway. Welcome back to the Birdwood Sub and episode 2 of our DCC short circuit and overlay protection for DCC layouts. Now, those of you will know, if you've been watching that a few months ago, I was trialling this, the NCE 6-block detector doobie thing with the bulbs. Now, I did say in that video that I will not be using this permanently on the layout. It was more of a trial to see how it would go instead of electronic circuit breakers, or until I got electronic circuit breakers. And it's a dismal failure. They are not designed to run layouts, big layouts. They might be okay with a power cap, but certainly not with a 5 amp booster or 2 5 amp boosters like I have. I still think bulbs have their place, but not alone on a layout. For DCC, I really do think you should have electronic circuit breakers, i.e. the EB1s like I'm using there, from NCE or some other electronic circuit breaker. And we'll get into why I think that way in a minute once we set up the other camera, but tried these for a while, they just got worse and worse. The filaments, of course, are so small. They say they're good for 1 amp, but they're nowhere near good for 1 amp. I proved that with my amp meter. So this caused heaps of problems. And if you're using a bigger bulb, like the automotive bulbs, yes, they do work a lot better because their filament is bigger, so there's less resistance across it, so you don't drop as much voltage. But as I said in that video, I think that, I have no idea where to look on the phone. Where's the freaking thing? Oh, wherever it is, anyway, who cares? I need a big camera. There's so much voltage drop across these little bulbs here that I feel they're suitable for, say, an industry. We want to protect a few little tracks in the yard or industry, even with the other bulbs that carry more current because their filaments are bigger. They're still, I don't think, the main thing you should use for short circuit protection. So we'll get into that in a minute. We'll also get into, just because you go to electronic circuit breakers transceivers, it doesn't mean your problems are over. No. So especially if you have older style auto reversers like the Digitrax AR1 like I have, which are an old style analog auto reverser. Fantastic unit, I'm not saying a bad thing about it. They're bulletproof and they go forever. But when you marry them up with electronic circuit breakers, you do run into a bit of a problem, which you have to do some resetting on the circuit breakers. So we'll get into that. Let's have a look at that, and we'll carry on. Right, you can see I've installed one of the old girls here. Now this is to prove a theory that I had, that if you have the bulbs, have these things, or if you want to still use other bulbs around the place to protect small areas without having to rely on the electronic circuit breaker for small areas like yards or something like that. So this is where I think these will come in handy, and they're a cheap way to have short circuit or overlay protection briefly in a local area, and that's what I discussed in the first part of this video, that I always thought that these would be okay for this, and the electronic circuit breakers for your main part of the layout. So this is just a temporary thing I've got here. So we've got our feed coming in here. So this is coming from, this feed here is coming from the normal bus that is protected by one of the ECB ones, the electronic circuit breakers. So this is just hanging off the track bus here. And here we have 2 tracks coming off. Now these are 2 dead end tracks up here. They're loco storage and new diesel service for the top level. And you can hear this SD70 Mac idling away here. So it's on this track, or one of these, one of them anyway. So I'm going to short out the far track, and this bulb will light up to take the short, but because it's less than an amp, and my electronic circuit breaker, they come factory set, I think at 2.5 amps, we'll get into that in a minute. So this is going to take the load and not trip the circuit breaker. So that's what I was saying, it's really good for local areas or yards or industries where you're always going to run through a turnout or something like that. So rather than having heaps of electronic circuit breakers in there, you could maybe do something like this, or even better, have your automotive bulbs, or even cheaper again, and that way they can protect it locally, and you can have the lamps right there where you can see them. and your electronic circuit breakers are more for big shorts and things like that, that you might not know what's happening. And of course, the downside to these is that the power still stays through the short. So that is one of the downsides. That's why I think they're better if they're local, because you can see it and go, oh, hang on, what's going on here? Because the current is still going through whatever's shorting out, and it's making the path for this bulb. Where with an electronic circuit breaker, the power is turned off, and then it tries to reset again, and it turns off, so it's a lot better. But anyway, here we go. We'll just ramp this girl up here. So there we go, that's going. Can we see it moving there, trendsetters? Yes, we can. Where did I put it? Aha. Piece of track to short it out. Here we go. There we go. You can see it's actually the second bulb here. Now, our ECB, electronic circuit breaker, hasn't tripped because this is only taking, it's about 700, 600 milliamps. It's nowhere near an amp. So there we go. So that's on that far track, and as you can see, our loco is still running. So we'll swap that around, and I'll put it on the back track, and I'll show you on the front track, and we'll get the other lamp lit up. Now we're coming back on the rear track now, so I'm going to short out the track that we're on before, that the loco was on before, and we'll see the top lamp light this time. So here we go. There we go, so that's the top lamp. See, our circuit breaker is still untripped, not tripped, and that's taking the load of this track. So if we were to accidentally run a loco through to this turnout here without it being switched, we just get this light here. It would be local where your industry is, and you could see it and go, oh, hang on, quick, and without your electronic circuit breaker tripping and taking out another whole section. Bang. So this is where, and this is just to prove a proof of concept for me, and I'm going to use these on, I've got two of these, I bought two of these, so I'm going to use these on the yards, and you could put a yard track on every one of these bulbs if you wanted to, and that way if you had a ladder at each end of your yard, and you run through a turnout, then you would literally only short that track out, and the rest of your yard would keep working. I think that's a good idea, because yards and industry is where you have lots of people running through turnouts and stuff like that, and you could have it there somewhere where it's visible for all the operators in the yard and they can see it, and that way you can quickly remove the short, and you know pretty much, if you have these labelled which track they're on, you would know, trendsetters, exactly where the short is. And now I'm not saying this is in conjunction, remember, in conjunction with electronic circuit breakers protecting the layout properly. This is just a local short thing, and this is the idea that I had right from the start when I installed these on the layout originally. It was just too tight to buy ECB, or not too tight, just lazy, trendsetters, lazy. Why didn't I just buy them? Anyway, they're in now, and they're very good, but let's talk about electronic circuit breakers and auto reversers, because it's not as simple as buying them and hooking them up. No, it's not. Right, so you've installed your EB1 and you have some analog auto reversers like the Digitrax AR1s, which have a relay or something similar. Now, with our EB1s, these are incredibly quick at reaction times and all that sort of thing, which are all adjustable. And remember, these EB1s are an accessory. They are like a locomotive. They have a decoder in them, and you go to your cabs and you can select the select accessory button, and their factory default address is 2044, so you can adjust all sorts of things. So the trip, you can't adjust the trip current, as in how much current they will take before they trip. That's set at 2.5 volts. I would be inclined to leave that. I did actually start adjusting mine up because I thought I was having problems with the trip current too low with the auto reversers. So I set it to 3.5 amps, which you do by the little jumpers on the front of the board here, and there's a little diagram there. Comes with the instructions. Comes set with 2.5 amps. None of them jumper there, and as you see, as you go across, you see you either put 1 in or 2 in or whatever to get you up there. I'd honestly leave it at 2.5 unless you're running big locos or something, I don't know. But what was happening, my trains were getting to the auto reversing section, and they were shorting out the circuit breaker and stopping. And so I upped the trip current to 3.5 amps, and that only made it worse. So I started scratching my head, and then I thought, hang on a minute. These are an electronic circuit breaker, so they're actually switching the current off electronically. There's no moving parts. The poor old AR1, where they are a fantastic auto reverser, they're bulletproof, but they are relay driven. So they're very slow compared to how quick a electronic circuit breaker works. So what was happening was the train was getting to the auto reverser, shorting out the track, as they do, remember, they short out the track completely, and the auto reverser reacts to that as quick as it possibly can and changes the polarity of the rail. So remember, it doesn't change the polarity of the current because it's already going positive and negative being AC, but it changes the polarity of the rail, so they match up. So the rails are like that, the AR1 changes them like that. You'll know that if you watched my video on DigiTrack's AR1s. So what was happening is the poor old AR1 auto reverser wasn't quick enough to swap these rails around, and the EB1 was seeing that as a dead short and shutting down. So what I had to do was extend the time it took, the delay time on the EB1, so it gave the poor old AR1s enough time to disconnect the wires and put them back again, the old relay clunking over. So factory default setting on the EB1s is 16 milliseconds. I mean, that's crazy quick, trendsetters. That's crazy quick. So the time that it would take for a relay to throw over would be a lot longer than that. It would be 100 milliseconds at least. So what you do is you go into your select accessories button and you select the default number for the circuit breakers, the default address, which is 2044. You can change that if you want to. You can have every one of these circuit breakers a different address if you want. But I just leave it at 2044. Went in to the CVs, and the CV129, they call it allowable short circuit time. I guess, you could call it circuit breaker reaction time or something like that. But anyway, the default is 16 milliseconds, crazy. It's CV129, I'll put that up in the DV Whacker thing here somewhere. And it comes as a default setting as 1. So let me just make sure I'm not running through a tuner here, trendsetters. No, very good. Need to put some more signals in. So it goes up in increments of 16. So CV129 value of 1 is 16. I made it value of 2, which is 32 seconds. And that fixed the problem. All it needed was just that tiny bit more time before it cut the power to the track to give the poor old AR1 time to swap the polarity over. I might even take it up to 48 milliseconds because every now and then I see the headlights flicker as they just get there in time. But anyway, I was having all sorts of dramas. It was shorting out, and I didn't know what was going on. I thought, here we go. I've gone from the stupid bulbs to the electronic circuit breakers, and it was giving me more problem. That's all it is. They don't mention that in any of this blurb here, NCE. I mean, it's a great product, but you really do need to mention that. I think they go on about delay startup times when you've got a whole bunch of sound equipped locos, and sometimes the circuit breaker will trip when all the decoders try and fire up, and that's a different setting. That's a startup table, and there's all different custom startup tables. I don't know why you would need that, but anyway. But for me, for the old auto reverse sections, if you're using a analog or a relay based auto reverser, you will probably have to up your reaction time just a little bit more. Make the old electronic circuit breaker a wee bit slower. CV129, and your default setting, your address is 2044. Do that. They all do it at once. If you don't adjust the addresses, they all adjust once, so you can do all the circuit breakers at once, and then you will be sweet, good to go. So yeah, these are very good. These are very good. These, very bad, very bad. But good for, I'm really glad that works. And if you've got some of these, or if you want to protect your industries and yards without having to buy more electronic circuit breakers, I would use not this particular thing, but the old automotive bulbs. And you can put them in for every track in your industries. Run them off your bus that is protected by an electronic circuit breaker. And that way, you have to make sure that the bulbs, and that's another thing, if you're going to use bulbs as well as a circuit breaker, make sure your bulbs draw less current than what you have your circuit breaker set at. Otherwise, the bulbs will trip the circuit breaker. But these things are so, NCE say these are good for 1 amp. No way. I've had amp meters on these. These are not even good for about 400, 500 milliamps. They start glowing at about 200 milliamps. And when you think about it, you're trying to put all that layout, you track current through the tiny little filaments there. Silly. Might work with a power cab, but certainly not with a pro cab, that's for sure. Anyway, that's it. All very good transfers. This has been a bit long for this update to come through, but I'll be working on scenery, believe it or not. So we'll see you with the scenery update very soon. And yes, I know you're saying, why didn't you put the circuit breaker? No, I can hear, I told you so. But it was an experiment. And I do like the bulbs protecting as a secondary protection, a local secondary protection for your industry or yards. Yeah. Anyway, catch you soon. Thank you very much for watching. See you later on. Bye for now.